Oh, look, Archie, ain't that beautiful?
Jean Stapleton finally breaks silence on why she left. All in the Family, 1971. Jean Stapleton was best known for her role as Edith Bunker in the 1970s smash sitcom All in the Family. For 9 seasons, she was Edith, the voice, the mannerisms, the quiet emotional weight that held the show together even when everything else felt loud and combative. Then, after nearly a decade, she walked away. At the time, no one fully understood why. There were rumors, assumptions, half-answers, but nothing concrete. Jean Stapleton never made a spectacle of her exit. She didn't air grievances. She didn't chase headlines. She simply left. Years later, before her death, Jean Stapleton finally revealed the real reason she stepped away from All in the Family. And it wasn't what most people expected. So why did she leave at the height of the show's success? Was it tension with her co-stars? Creative frustration? Or was there something deeper pushing her toward the exit? Join us as we get into all the details. The sitcom that changed everything. All in the Family wasn't just a hit television show, it was a cultural line in the sand. Premiering on CBS in January 1971 and running for 9 seasons until 1979, the series aired 205 episodes that didn't just entertain America. They unsettled it, challenged it, forced conversations that most sitcoms were too polite or too scared to touch. When the show ended, it didn't really end. It simply shifted form, continuing as Archie Bunker's Place and stretching the story into the early 1980s. The world had changed by then, but the foundation had already been laid. The idea itself wasn't born in America. It was adapted from the British series Till Death Us Do Part. What made the American version different was how boldly it translated those tensions into a U.S. living room. Under the guidance of producer Norman Lear, the show stopped pretending that comedy had to be comfortable. Instead, it leaned straight into discomfort and let the laughs come from recognition rather than relief. At the center of it all was Archie Bunker, played by Carroll O'Connor. Loud, stubborn, deeply convinced he was right about everything. Archie wasn't written to be admired, but he was impossible to ignore. Around him orbited a family that made his worldview crack from every angle. His wife, Edith Bunker, brought to life by Jean Stapleton, was the quiet counterweight, soft-spoken, earnest, emotionally intuitive in ways Archie never noticed. On the surface, Edith could seem naive, even fragile, but beneath that gentleness was a moral steadiness that often carried the emotional weight of the show. Archie dismissed her, mocked her, and called her a dingbat. Yet Edith remained the heart holding the household together. Their daughter Gloria, played by Sally Struthers, sat somewhere between those two worlds. She inherited her mother's kindness, but also her father's fire. Gloria was outspoken, increasingly feminist, and unwilling to quietly accept the rules Archie lived by. That tension only sharpened when she married Michael Stivic. Michael, portrayed by Rob Reiner, was everything Archie resented. College-educated, politically progressive, a product of the 1960s counterculture. Archie called him Meathead, but the nickname masked a deeper fear. Michael represented a future Archie didn't understand and couldn't control. For years, Gloria and Michael lived under the Bunker roof, and that shared space turned everyday life into a battleground of values, beliefs, and generational identity. And that was the genius of the show. The arguments weren't abstract. They played out over dinner tables, in cramped living rooms, and through awkward silences that lingered long after the laugh track faded. Racism, anti-Semitism, gender roles, religion, war, sexuality, illness, marriage, power. Nothing was off-limits. Comedy became the entry point, but the emotional payoff often landed somewhere far heavier. The setting barely changed. Most scenes unfolded inside the Bunker's modest home at 704 Hauser Street in Queens. That familiarity mattered. It made the clashes feel intimate and unavoidable. When the show ventured outside, it was usually to places that still felt like extensions of Archie himself, like Kelsey's Bar, the neighborhood tavern where he escaped, argued, and eventually planted his flag by buying the place. Even the surrounding neighborhood reflected the shifting world outside the Bunker household. The Jeffersons, a black family living next door in the early seasons, weren't background characters. They were part of the story's evolution. When George Jefferson's dry cleaning business succeeded and the family moved to Manhattan's Upper East Side, it wasn't just a plot development. It was a statement about mobility, resentment, and change. Their old home didn't disappear either. It passed to Gloria and Michael, keeping the cycle moving. By the mid-1970s, All in the Family wasn't just popular, it was dominant. It topped Nielsen ratings year after year and became the most watched show in the country during summer reruns. Episodes like Sammy's Visit cemented its legacy, while Archie Bunker himself became one of the most recognizable characters in television history. But numbers alone don't explain its impact. What made the show endure was its refusal to choose sides cleanly. It let characters be wrong. It let them hurt each other. And it trusted the audience enough to sit with that discomfort. That trust is what made All in the Family more than a sitcom. It turned the American living room into a mirror. And once people saw themselves in it, television was never the same again. How Jean Stapleton became Edith Bunker and turned a dingbat into the soul of the show. Jean Stapleton didn't stumble into Edith Bunker. She built her. Before All in the Family ever became a cultural lightning rod, Stapleton was already a seasoned theater actress, respected on Broadway and trusted to carry complex characters. She had originated roles in major stage productions, including Funny Girl and Damn Yankees, and it was on that stage that everything changed. Producer Norman Lear noticed her during Damn Yankees. What caught his attention wasn't just her presence, but her voice. Nasal, distinctive, impossible to forget. More importantly, Lear saw how effortlessly she could make a quirky woman feel real, warm, and deeply human rather than cartoonish. That combination stayed with him. When it came time to cast All in the Family, Lear called Stapleton in to audition. What happened next wasn't written into a script. Stapleton created Edith's voice herself. The high pitch, the dithering rhythm, the gentle hesitations. She shaped Edith's personality from the inside out, turning what could have been a one-note dingbat wife into a woman full of emotional intelligence and strength. That contrast mattered. Paired with Carol O'Connor's explosive, rigid Archie Bunker, Stapleton's Edith became the perfect counterbalance. Where Archie barked, Edith softened. Where he judged, she listened. And somehow, without ever raising her voice, she often landed the heaviest truths. On paper, Edith Bunker was undereducated, apolitical, and cheerfully domestic. In practice, she was the glue holding a volatile family together. She wasn't driven by ideology, she was driven by empathy. While the rest of the household argued principles, Edith focused on people. Her backstory quietly explained why. Born in January 1925 in Scranton, Pennsylvania, Edith came of age during instability. She attended Millard Fillmore High School, graduating in 1943, and carried with her a deep fear of family fracture. Her parents nearly divorced after a brutal fight, and although they stayed together, Edith admitted things were never the same. That experience shaped her devotion to marriage, her aversion to conflict, and her belief that harmony mattered more than being right. She later moved to New York City, where her life intersected with Archie's at the Puritan-made ice cream parlor. During World War II, Archie wrote to her from overseas while serving in the Army Air Corps. Letters Edith would later read aloud from her diary. By 1946, they were married. Stability, for Edith, wasn't a luxury, it was survival. Early in the series, Edith is still finding her footing. In the first season, she often appears as the put-upon wife, gently lamenting Archie's behavior. Jean Stapleton's voice hadn't fully crystallized yet either. She spoke closer to her natural range, the accent present but restrained. By the second season, something shifted. Edith became softer, sunnier, and more non-judgmental. Archie became Archie, and the character viewers would come to love was fully formed. Despite Archie's constant insults, Edith never mirrored his prejudice. She befriended Louise Jefferson with ease. She welcomed drag performer Beverly LaSalle into her life without hesitation. When she learned that her cousin Liz had been a lesbian and that Liz's roommate, Veronica, was actually her life partner, Edith moved quickly past shock and straight into compassion, embracing Veronica and honoring her as Liz's true next of kin. Where Archie saw lines, Edith saw people. That didn't mean Edith was weak, far from it. She confronted Archie about gambling after watching her father nearly destroy their family with the same addiction. She slapped Archie when she felt he crossed a line. She snapped back during menopause, telling him to stifle, and later shouting for everyone to leave her alone. In rare moments, Edith's composure cracked, and when it did, the audience felt the weight of everything she'd been holding in. Her life wasn't insulated from pain. Edith endured menopause, a breast cancer scare, a near sexual assault on her 50th birthday, recurring illness, and eventually physical decline. Even so, she remained optimistic, gentle, and fiercely loyal. She supported Jimmy Carter. She questioned God's judgment when Archie weaponized religion. She reminded Mike that Archie's cruelty often came from jealousy, not hatred. She helped Gloria understand that being right didn't always mean being kind. Edith also evolved beyond the home. She took a part-time job as a caretaker at the Sunshine Home. She became involved in Archie's tavern business, even though he secretly forged her signature on the loan. When she lost her caretaker job after allowing a terminally ill woman to die with dignity, she didn't crumble. She found similar work in a mental health facility, continuing to care for others the way she always had. Her voice became iconic. That drawn-out, "Oh, ouchie," echoed through living rooms across America. But beneath the shrillness was something steady. Edith was wise in ways Archie never recognized. Even Archie's own father once described her as too smart for him. When Edith Bunker died of a stroke, revealed in Archie Bunker's place, the loss felt personal, not just to Archie, but to the audience. She had been the conscience of the show, the warmth, the reminder that decency didn't need to shout to be heard. Jean Stapleton didn't just play Edith Bunker, she protected her. And in doing so, she turned a character written as comic relief into the emotional backbone of one of television's most important shows. The show CBS was afraid to air, and the crisis that nearly ended it. Considering the lasting success of All in the Family, it's easy to forget just how nervous CBS was before it ever reached living rooms across America. From the very beginning, the network knew this wasn't going to be a polite sitcom. The show was built to confront controversial subjects head-on, and executives were keenly aware of the backlash that might follow. So when the pilot finally aired, CBS didn't ease viewers in with jokes. It opened with a disclaimer. As PBS later recalled, an opening crawl appeared on screen explaining exactly what audiences were about to see. The program, it said, sought to shine a humorous spotlight on society's frailties, prejudices, and concerns. By turning those issues into laughter, the show hoped to reveal how absurd they truly were, and to do so in a mature way. It was a preemptive move, a network bracing itself before the first punch landed. Even with that warning, the nerves didn't disappear. Behind the scenes, anxiety turned into intervention. During production of the initial 13 episodes, ordered by CBS, creator Norman Lear received a memo from the network's Programs Practice Department. It wasn't vague. It was detailed. A list of words, phrases, and entire subject areas that made executives deeply uncomfortable. Lear read it and chose to push forward anyway. Many of the requests were ignored. The scripts stayed sharp. The dialogue stayed uncomfortable. And something unexpected happened. The backlash CBS feared never arrived. Instead, the show caught fire. According to The Atlantic, All in the Family didn't just dominate the ratings. It helped bridge a generational divide that few shows had even attempted to address. Much of that impact rested on one character, Archie Bunker. Archie's views were often backward. His language was abrasive, but he wasn't incidental to the show's message. He was its engine. Every week, his worldview collided with others, forcing conversations that audiences couldn't look away from. The discomfort was the point, but the same intensity that made the show successful also took a toll. For Carol O'Connor, Archie Bunker slowly began to represent something darker. While most actors would have celebrated the show's success, O'Connor was increasingly frustrated by what he saw as negative working conditions behind the scenes. In July 1974, the tension boiled over. According to an archived article from the Sarasota Herald-Tribune, O'Connor went on a personal strike. He told friends he was doubtful he would return to All in the Family. His frustration wasn't abstract. He openly admitted that there are a lot of things wrong. O'Connor made a point to clarify that he wasn't rejecting the audience or his public image. He appreciated the fans and understood the cultural weight of the role. But shortly before speaking to the Tribune, he had filed a lawsuit against the show's production company, Tandem Productions, claiming the company owed him $64,000. There was more. As Mental Floss later reported, O'Connor also requested 12 weeks of vacation built into the show's 24-week production schedule. For a series that ran on tight timelines, it was a demand that shook the production. With its star refusing to work, the show faced a real crisis. Shutting down wasn't an option. Instead, Norman Lear and the producers made a bold decision. The show would continue without Archie. Writers crafted 3 episodes that worked Archie's absence directly into the storyline. The arc began with Season 5's 8th episode, Where's Archie? Archie mysteriously disappears while traveling, leaving Edith, Gloria, and Mike confused, then increasingly worried when he fails to return or even call. The tension carried into the next episode, Archie is Missing, where the family grapples with the reality that he's been gone for more than 24 hours. They debate what to do, whether to panic, whether something terrible has happened. The storyline concludes with Episode 10, The Longest Kiss. Archie finally reappears and casually explains that he was having such a good time on his trip that he forgot to check in. It's played for comedy, but behind that light ending was a much darker possibility. Because Norman Lear wasn't sure O'Connor would ever come back. After O'Connor voiced doubts about his future on the series, Lear quietly began preparing for the worst. He made his position clear and even developed a backup plan for the show's survival. A replacement for Archie already existed. Actor James Cromwell had recently debuted as Stretch Cunningham, one of Archie's friends, shortly before O'Connor's absence. Lear's plan was drastic. Archie would be killed off in an accident. Stretch would move into the bunker house and fill the void left behind. Once that plan became known, the standoff ended. O'Connor returned to the show. Ironically, Stretch Cunningham didn't last much longer. 2 seasons later, the character was written out and killed off instead, reportedly at O'Connor's request. Cromwell later told the New York Post that he may have been getting too many laughs for O'Connor's liking. Still, he saw the outcome as a blessing, noting that staying might have left him permanently trapped in one role. In the end, the conflict faded. O'Connor settled his differences with Norman Lear and Tandem Productions. Archie Bunker lived on, anchoring All in the Family for 9 seasons and continuing for 4 more in Archie Bunker's place. What nearly destroyed the show ultimately reinforced its legacy. The same stubbornness that made Archie Bunker combustible on screen fueled the real-life standoff that almost erased him. Somehow, through lawsuits, walkouts, and contingency plans, All in the Family survived long enough to become one of the most successful and influential sitcoms ever produced. Before Edith, the life Jean Stapleton, built long before television found her. Long before America knew her voice, Jean Stapleton was already shaped by performance. She was born on January 19, 1923 in Manhattan, into a family where art wasn't distant or abstract. It lived right in the house. Her mother, Marie A. Stapleton, was an opera singer. Her father, Joseph E. Murray, worked in billboard advertising. Her older brother, Jack, pursued the stage. An uncle performed in vaudeville. Acting wasn't something Jean discovered later in life. It surrounded her early, quietly pointing her in one direction. By the time she was 18, she had already stepped into the world she was meant for. In 1942, she began working in summer stock theater, learning the craft the long way, night after night, different roles, different audiences. Soon after, she made her New York debut in the off-Broadway production American Gothic. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real, and it set the tone for everything that followed. Broadway came next, and Stapleton didn't pass through it lightly. She became part of major productions that defined an era. Funny Girl, Juno, Damn Yankees, Bells Are Ringing. These weren't footnotes, they were milestones. When Hollywood adapted Damn Yankees in 1958, Stapleton recreated her stage role on screen, marking her film debut. She did the same with Bells Are Ringing in 1960. Even then, her work carried a sense of continuity. She didn't abandon the stage for the camera. She brought the stage with her. Television followed naturally. In the early years, she appeared everywhere. Anthology series, guest roles, one-off characters that required precision and presence, even in short bursts. She showed up on Starlight Theater, Robert Montgomery Presents, Lux Video Theater, and the Philco Goodyear Television Playhouse. She moved easily between worlds, from My Three Sons to Dennis the Menace, from Naked City to Dr. Kildare. In 1962, she appeared on The Defenders in an episode titled The Hidden Jungle, sharing the screen with Carol O'Connor. Years before, either of them could have imagined what lay ahead. Film work continued alongside television. Something Wild, Up the Down Staircase, Clute, even a Norman Lear comedy, Cold Turkey. None of it felt like chasing fame. It felt like working, building, staying sharp. Recognition came anyway. On May 9, 1971, Stapleton won the Primetime Emmy Award for Best Actress in a Comedy, beating out Mary Tyler Moore and Marlo Thomas. That same year, she was offered the role of Mrs. TV in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. She turned it down. The timing conflicted with the pilot for All in the Family. The role went to Nora Denny. Stapleton never looked back. Offstage, her life moved at a different rhythm. In 1957, she married William H. Putch, a respected theater director and producer. They met through their shared devotion to the stage, and their marriage reflected that same quiet alignment. There was no Hollywood spectacle, no noise, just mutual respect, collaboration, and a deep understanding of the work. They raised 2 children together, a son, John, and a daughter, Pamela. And even as Stapleton's television fame grew, the theater never disappeared from her life. Putch served as artistic director of the Totem Pole Playhouse in Pennsylvania, and Stapleton continued to perform there during summer breaks, returning to a small-town creative community they both cherished. Success didn't pull her away. It circled back. In 1983, that world cracked. William Putch died suddenly of a heart attack while on tour with a production. Stapleton honored a performance commitment that very night, not out of obligation, but understanding. She later reflected that it was what he would have wanted. She never remarried. She continued supporting the Totem Pole Playhouse long after his death, keeping that shared life alive in the only way she knew how. Jean Stapleton died in 2013 at the age of 90. By then, her legacy was already secure, not just as Edith Bunker, but as a woman who built her life deliberately, one role at a time, one stage at a time, long before television ever caught up. And yet, the role that made her immortal was the one she eventually had to leave behind. When Edith left, the choice that changed the show forever. Audiences loved All in the Family. They loved the chaos of it, the discomfort, the way it put Archie Bunker, played by Carol O'Connor, under the same roof as his long-suffering wife, Edith, their daughter, Gloria, and her husband, Michael Meathead Stivich. Nothing about that household was peaceful, and that was the point. For many viewers, the show became a ritual. It ran for 9 seasons, lived on through endless reruns, and eventually spun off into Archie Bunker's Place. Its legacy didn't fade. It lingered, passed down, rediscovered late at night, long after the final episode aired. But Archie Bunker's Place wasn't just a continuation, it was a response. And it existed because something fundamental had changed. Behind the scenes, one of the show's emotional anchors was preparing to walk away. Midway through the 9th season of All in the Family, word quietly spread that Jean Stapleton no longer wanted to continue. Edith Bunker, the character who softened the show's sharpest edges, had reached a stopping point in Stapleton's mind. She didn't see it as quitting. She saw it as finishing. Stapleton agreed to appear in only 5 episodes of the new series to help ease the transition. After that, Edith was written out. In the first episode of Season 2 of Archie Bunker's Place, the news arrived off-screen. Edith had died of a stroke. There was no spectacle, no drawn-out farewell, just absence. In a 1979 interview with the Detroit Free Press, Stapleton made it clear that her decision had nothing to do with resentment or exhaustion with her castmates. She spoke of Edith with affection and gratitude, acknowledging how deeply the role had shaped her life. But she also admitted a fear. She worried that if she continued playing Edith, she would never lose her. The line between actress and character had grown too thin. That choice forced a reckoning. Without Edith, All in the Family faced a crossroads. One option was to end the show entirely. Series creator Norman Lear believed that was the right move. To him, the show without Edith no longer felt like the same story. But the network wasn't ready to let go. Robert Daly, then vice president of CBS Television, stepped in and pushed for continuation. The ratings were still strong. Archie Bunker was still a cultural force. Walking away felt premature. After discussions and compromises, a solution emerged that satisfied everyone just enough. The show would continue, but not under the same name. Lear didn't want All in the Family to exist without Edith, so the series was rebranded as Archie Bunker's Place. The focus shifted away from the Bunker living room and into the bar Archie had purchased in Season 8. The house still appeared, but it was no longer the center of gravity. The bar became the new arena where Archie argued, pontificated, and tried to navigate a world that continued to change without his consent. To soften the transition, Stapleton appeared those 5 final times. Then Edith was gone. Archie's grief was written plainly. There was no attempt to rush past it. He was devastated, stripped of the one person who truly understood him, even when she disagreed. And yet, the show went on. Archie Bunker's Place ran for 4 seasons, proving that audiences were still willing to follow Archie, even if the tone had shifted and something irreplaceable was missing. It was never quite the same, and it wasn't meant to be. After leaving All in the Family, Jean Stapleton didn't retreat. She kept moving. She worked steadily, intentionally. She starred in the short-lived sitcom Baghdad Cafe alongside Whoopi Goldberg. She appeared in the Showtime children's series Mrs. Piggle Wiggle and the CBS television movie Like Mother, Like Son. She toured extensively with her acclaimed one-woman stage production, Eleanor, Her Secret Journey, returning again and again to the stage that had always grounded her. Her convictions extended beyond performance. Stapleton supported Walter Mondale's 1984 presidential campaign. She was a vocal supporter of the Equal Rights Amendment. She took an active role in the 1977 National Women's Conference. These weren't sidelines for her. They were part of the same life philosophy. Show up, stand for something, do the work quietly. Despite her fame, Stapleton rarely appeared on talk shows. She preferred distance, privacy, but in April 2000, she made a rare exception, reuniting on camera with Carol O'Connor on Donnie and Marie Osmond's show, just over a year before O'Connor's death. When the Osmonds asked her to slip back into Edith Bunker's voice, she declined, lightly. With humor, she joked that she only did that for pay. It was telling. Stapleton later admitted that she seldom watched All in the Family. The character had been too close, too consuming. But by 2000, she softened. Looking back, she reconsidered the show's place in her life. acknowledging its weight and its meaning in an interview with the Archive of American Television. Jean Stapleton died of natural causes in her Manhattan apartment on May 31, 2013. She was 90 years old. By then, Edith Bunker was already immortal. Not because she stayed too long, but because she knew exactly when to leave. Were you a fan of All in the Family? And who was your favorite character? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.